map, and it involves the latest song from North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Let's take a listen.
Despite being surrounded by countries which had been infested with a coronavirus, North Korea, a nation with one of the worst health systems in the world, has said publicly it had 0 cases.
All men and women can do one of 28 government-approved haircuts, 18 for women, 10 for men. Other hairstyles are prohibited. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un introduced this law in 2013 and did not include his hairstyle on the list because he wanted to keep it unique and absolutely no one can dare to copy his hairstyle.
He just spent about almost $4 million USD, $3.8 million on the lingeries and undergarments. Just alone, that much money for the pleasure squad girls.
Hello everyone. These days there's growing global interest in North Korea, its way of life, its people, and its mysterious society. Despite this rising curiosity, we still know very little about the country. Even those who have visited often share completely contradictory accounts of life there. Today, we've gathered some of the most intriguing and lesser-known facts about North Korea to shed some light on this enigmatic nation. Who knows? Maybe this collection will give us a better understanding of how North Koreans really live. So, let's dive in. According to its constitution, North Korea is a socialist country. But in reality, it's far removed from both communism and capitalism. It operates more like a monarchy, where power is passed down through generations. The Kim dynasty doesn't just rule. Its leaders are often elevated to the status of demigods, or at least mythical figures. Let's take a step back to the time of Kim Il-sung, the founding leader of North Korea. He became a revolutionary hero during World War II, leading resistance efforts against the Japanese from Mount Paektu, a site that has since become sacred to Koreans. North Korean propaganda claims that Kim Il-sung participated in 100,000 battles over a span of 10 years, meaning he would have fought 28 times a day. Even after his death, Kim Il-sung retained power as the eternal president, and his birthday, April 15th, is celebrated as the Day of the Sun. But in reality, much of Kim Il-sung's time during World War II was spent in the Soviet Union, studying military strategy and Marxism. His son, Kim Jong-il, also sought to match his father's legendary status. According to North Korean law, Kim Jong-il was born at a guerrilla camp on Mount Paektu, and like his father, he was said to have worked tirelessly for the prosperity of the nation, writing countless scientific papers. Whether or not you believe these stories, it's clear that North Korean propaganda has worked to craft a larger-than-life narrative around the Kim family. Statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il can be found all over the country, and both leaders have received countless honors. Even after death, their bodies are preserved and enshrined in the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun in Pyongyang. If that sounds surprising, here's something even more unbelievable. North Korean citizens are largely unaware that there are 2 Koreas. While the rest of the world knows about the division, residents of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea live under a veil of state-controlled information. And trust me, this is just the beginning. There are plenty of other shocking facts about North Korea still to discover. North Koreans are taught from early childhood that there is only one Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, with Pyongyang as its capital. If you were to look at a political map in any North Korean school or institution, you'd see only one Korea, completely ignoring the existence of South Korea. Despite the fact that North and South Korea could coexist peacefully, both sides have their own reasons for maintaining the current status quo. Officially, North Korea is a republic. However, in reality, it has been ruled by the Kim dynasty since 1948, creating a unique form of governance, essentially a socialist absolute monarchy. The country's first leader, Kim Il-sung, came to power in 1948 and remained in control until his death in 1994. Over the years, he was revered as the great leader. After his death, his son, Kim Jong-il, took over, ruling until 2011. Despite his hot temper and inflated ego, Kim Jong-il was given the title Dear Leader. Following his death, Kim Jong-un became the head of state and is now known as the Supreme Leader, continuing his family's authoritarian rule. Have you ever heard of a necrocracy? You'd be right if you guessed it's a system where a country is ruled by a deceased leader. North Korea is the only country in the world to practice this bizarre form of government. Kim Il-sung, the DPRK's first leader, was posthumously awarded the title of Eternal President, meaning that Kim Jong-un, his grandson, does not technically hold the title of president. Instead, he serves as the supreme leader, commanding the party, military, and people. While this might sound like a surprising twist, it doesn't change much in the everyday life of the country or its people. As for luxury and wealth, the Kim family's taste for extravagance is well known. Kim Il-sung, for instance, had a notorious love for luxury and was one of the world's biggest consumers of Hennessy. It's also said that he spent over $300 million annually on high-end goods. But his spending pales in comparison to his grandson, Kim Jong-un, who reportedly spent over $600 million in just 1 year on his personal indulgences. And that doesn't even include the vast sums spent by his family and inner circle. You might be surprised to learn that North Korea also has its own space program. Its first attempt to launch a satellite in 1998 ended in failure, but the program has attracted international attention ever since. The information about its successes and failures varies depending on the source, but it's clear that North Korea's ambitions extend far beyond its borders. After that, there were 4 more satellite launch attempts by North Korea, the last of which occurred 7 years ago. While 2 of their satellites did successfully reach orbit, unlike earlier failures, there's a catch: they can't actually be operated. The North Korean government, however, denies these issues, insisting that all their space launches have been fully successful. But then again, what else would they say? Have you ever heard of the concept of Songbun? It's essentially North Korea's caste system, independent of the ruling Kim dynasty. Under this system, the population is divided into 51 categories within 3 broad groups: the hostile, the wavering, and the loyal. Those considered enemies include former landowners, Christian clergy, merchants, lawyers, and their descendants. The loyal category comprises those who fought against the Japanese occupation, as well as workers and peasants. The rest of the population is deemed neutral. Some defectors from North Korea admit that the Songbun system affects nearly every aspect of life, from a person's ability to join the Workers' Party, receive an education, or attain a good job, to even their access to food. The harshest part? This status is inherited. From the moment a person is born, they are marked by the actions of their ancestors, and this mark determines their future. For example, a brilliant young mind may never become a scientist or even a teacher if his family is considered tainted by past misdeeds. Songbun status is assigned at age 17, and while it's nearly impossible to improve your standing, it's incredibly easy to worsen it. According to the US Department of State, the 3 generations of punishment rule also applies within the Songbun system. This means that not only a political enemy, but also their entire family, spouses, siblings, and even grandchildren can be sent to labor camps, where they may spend the rest of their lives behind barbed wire. In the 1990s, Kim Jong-il introduced the Songbun, or military first policy, which has shaped North Korea's future ever since. The regime places immense importance on its military, and today, North Korea ranks 4th in the world in terms of active military personnel, boasting a staggering 1.32 million soldiers. That's nearly 5% of the entire population. But if you include paramilitary forces and reserve troops, the number of North Koreans ready for war swells to an even more remarkable figure, nearly 8 times larger. If you ever plan to visit North Korea, keep in mind that you'll need a visa unless you hold a Malaysian or Singaporean passport, and even if your visa is approved, there's no guarantee you'll be granted entry into the country. The harsh reality is that if you try to flee North Korea, you may never come back. Attempting to escape is considered one of the greatest crimes in the country, second only to treason. After all, according to the regime, a true patriot never abandons their homeland, no matter how difficult life becomes. Yet, it remains unclear when or if these most difficult days will ever end. Even those who consider fleeing often refrain because their families will suffer severe consequences in their place. North Korea was among the first nations to close its borders in response to COVID-19, imposing severe restrictions as early as January 2020. The government halted all foreign travel for its citizens and by the end of the month completely closed the country to foreign tourists. Tensions between North Korea and the United States are well known. In 2014, North Korea released a video showing soldiers at a shooting range targeting images of American soldiers. In another bizarre video, a young girl demonstrates her hatred of Americans, a sentiment often cultivated by the regime from an early age. Despite what the government might portray, poverty exists in North Korea. One heartbreaking example is of a family that hides during the day and only ventures out at night in search of food. According to the mother, they risk arrest and being sent to correctional camps if the police notice them. Mobile communication in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is highly restricted. Only a small privileged group, usually high-ranking officials in the party or military, has access to mobile phones. Ordinary citizens are often prohibited from owning or using phones, though some in border cities manage to connect to Chinese networks to reach the outside world. In a strange but telling example of the country's rigid control, women's sanitary pads are banned. Due to ideological and cultural factors, as well as limited supplies, women are encouraged to use alternative hygiene products like fabric or reusable pads instead of imported disposables. Pyongyang's subway system, much like those in many former Soviet cities, is located deep underground. This design serves a dual purpose, as the stations can also function as bomb shelters in times of conflict. Sunan International Airport in Pyongyang is a stark contrast to the bustling airports we're familiar with. With North Korean citizens rarely allowed to fly and foreigners seldom permitted to visit, the airport is eerily quiet, receiving just a handful of flights each week. North Korea's Songbun caste system deeply affects its citizens' daily lives. The population is divided into 5 categories: special, core, basic, problematic, and hostile. Those in the upper castes, primarily high-ranking government, military, and party officials, enjoy privileges and access to resources. Meanwhile, those in the lower castes, considered ideologically unreliable, face limitations in nearly every aspect of life, from education to employment. What is everyday life really like in North Korea? It's difficult to say for sure. Photos and videos from international media and the occasional tourist offer glimpses, but true insight is hard to come by. For example, provincial towns like those east of Kaesong, located along the demilitarized zone, appear desolate in images. The training of North Korea's special forces is intense and unusual. Soldiers undergo rigorous exercises, focusing on marches, firearms training, and overcoming natural obstacles in combat-like conditions. This militarization reflects the country's status as the most militarized in the world, with over 1.2 million active soldiers. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently traveled to Russia using his iconic armored train. One of the carriages, where journalists were briefly allowed, featured white walls, ivory curtains, and pink leather sofas. Due to its heavy armor, the train can only travel at around 60 kilometers per hour. The wagons carrying the North Korean leader are bulletproof, equipped with tinted windows for added security. In North Korea, female traffic controllers are highly respected and always elegantly dressed. However, in rural areas, buses are rare and bicycles are the primary means of transportation. Cars are prohibitively expensive for the average citizen, and the high cost of gasoline makes owning one nearly impossible. This photo from Wonsan showcases a typical North Korean celebration, where the size of the dishes is notably small. Although free trade is officially illegal, state-regulated markets called changmadang emerged after the famine of the 1990s. Citizens who cannot afford a stall in these markets often sell their goods on the street, though doing so can lead to trouble with the police. Portraits of former leader Kim Il-sung and General Kim Jong-il adorn every train carriage, and Pyongyang's subway is filled with propaganda. In some rural areas, even school buses are overcrowded, with children forced to sit on top of each other during their commute. Amidst the poverty, there are occasional glimpses of leisure. For example, soldiers of the Korean People's Army can sometimes be seen riding amusement rides in Pyongyang's parks. One such place is Folklore Street, located in Sariwon, south of Pyongyang, which aims to showcase an idealized version of ancient Korea. Meanwhile, ordinary streets in port cities like Haeju are starkly labeled with slogans like "Cultural Revolution." Weddings are often modest affairs, like this couple photographed at the Pyongyang Botanical Garden. Most apartment buildings across the country are old, cold, and made of concrete, with no central heating to endure North Korea's frosty winters. North Korea has faced a severe fertilizer shortage since 2008, prompting Kim Jong-un in 2014 to encourage farmers to use human feces along with animal waste and organic compost. Specialized stores even began selling human excrement, which residents claim makes vegetables tastier. However, medical experts have expressed concerns over health risks, citing a case where a soldier was found to have parasitic worms, one of which was 28 centimeters long. Despite these attempts at normalcy, North Korea continues to face widespread hunger. Agriculture is almost non-existent, forcing many to survive on seaweed and roots. Kim Jong-un has even attempted to modernize North Korean pop culture by forming a girl band, with performances blending Western-style music with the country's strict propaganda themes. While these groups perform in a style somewhat reminiscent of foreign pop stars, their music ultimately serves to promote devotion to the motherland and the party. Cybersecurity and international relations also highlight North Korea's efforts to navigate global challenges. The country has been implicated in major cyber attacks, stealing vast amounts of cryptocurrency to fund its missile development programs. These cyber operations have drawn international sanctions, particularly from the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Domestically, North Korean life is heavily controlled. Citizens work 6 days a week, and weekends are often dedicated to state-mandated volunteer work, ensuring that people have little time for personal reflection or dissent. Elections are held, but with only one candidate on the ballot, there is little real choice, and those who attempt to vote against the candidate face the risk of public exposure. Media is equally restricted, with only 4 television channels available, all of which are state-run and focus on propaganda, educational content, or sports. The internet is accessible to only a select few, mainly the elite or those involved in government propaganda. For most North Koreans, the outside world is largely invisible, with the state ensuring that citizens remain insulated from global influences. Despite these restrictions, North Korea does boast a high literacy rate thanks to its free education system. However, this education is likely skewed toward reinforcing the regime's ideologies rather than providing a broad modern curriculum. Corruption is also a significant part of life in North Korea, with bribery serving as a means for citizens to navigate the restrictive system. While officially frowned upon, it is an open secret that money can buy better medical care, access to foreign media, or even release from prison. This culture of bribery reflects the broader inefficiencies and challenges within the country's rigid social and political structures. The video describes the tragic fate of a mother and daughter who, in desperation, tried to escape by swimming across a river, only to be caught and convicted. This incident underscores the extreme consequences North Koreans face if they even attempt to defy the regime. Surveillance is pervasive, and any escape attempt can result in imprisonment or worse. Life in the capital, Pyongyang, is equally eerie, with empty streets and sparse traffic. A scene of a traffic controller pretending to direct non-existent cars offers a bizarre example of how orchestrated daily life is. There are reports suggesting that North Korea's leader maintains a group known as the Pleasure Squad. This elite group, reportedly made up of some of the most beautiful women in the country, is said to entertain high-ranking officials and special guests. According to former members who have escaped, the women receive a generous salary, and the regime spends millions annually to maintain this group. In another display of control, during the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death, North Koreans were forbidden from laughing, drinking, or having fun for 11 days as the country entered a strict mourning period. Even purchases were banned on the day of his death, December 7th. North Korea operates with 2 parallel currencies, the official North Korean won and black market currencies like the US dollar and Chinese yuan, which are often preferred. The shortage of foreign currency, combined with economic challenges, has caused significant discrepancies between the value of the won and foreign currencies in the black market. While it's easy to assume that all power rests with Kim Jong-un and his close circle, the country does have a Supreme People's Assembly. However, it functions more as a symbolic institution. The 700 members are elected every 5 years through highly controlled staged elections. Each district nominates only one candidate, making any dissent clear and easily punishable. Voting against a candidate requires publicly crossing out their name, eliminating the possibility of secret ballots. One surprising fact about North Korea is that its residents do not pay taxes, a policy in place since 1974. However, there's speculation that income tax could return in the future, as the country faces financial difficulties. Historically, the regime distributed goods and services based on a citizen's status, making money nearly irrelevant until private enterprises and shadow economies emerged as the system collapsed. Creativity is limited in the country, especially when it comes to depictions of leaders. Only one art studio in Pyongyang is allowed to create such works, while massive national events like the Arirang Festival continue to draw attention with their grandeur. A propaganda village, Kijong-dong, near the South Korean border, was built to showcase the supposed prosperity of North Korea, but when examined closely, many of its buildings were revealed to be empty shells. Today, the village reportedly houses 200 families, along with schools and a hospital. The country's electrical grid is outdated, and power is available on a strict schedule. The majority of residents can only use household appliances during designated hours to avoid overloading the system. On the other hand, education is highly valued, with free kindergartens, secondary schools, and universities available to citizens, though the curriculum is outdated in some areas. Another curious fact is that it is illegal for North Korean children to share the same name as their leader, and parents are required to change their child's name if it conflicts with that of the ruling family. This tradition has been passed down since the days of Kim Il-sung. Nutritionally, North Koreans consume far fewer calories than their southern neighbors, contributing to a noticeable height difference between the two populations. Hunger remains a serious issue, with 42% of North Koreans reportedly malnourished. In some rare footage, there is a shocking display of an interrogation in a North Korean police station. A woman trembles in fear during questioning, with a disturbing bloodstain on the wall behind her, a chilling reminder of the brutal tactics employed by law enforcement. In a harrowing image leaked from North Korea, a disturbing scene unfolds within the walls of a police station. A uniformed North Korean police officer is seen hovering over a terrified female prisoner, her face etched with fear and desperation. His body language is predatory, his intentions unmistakably vile. She cowers, trying to pull away, her hands bound, leaving her defenseless. Overall, this narrative sheds light on the extreme hardship, fear, and repression that define life in North Korea, where the regime's stranglehold on power shapes every facet of society.